right. Welcome, everyone, to Fraud Fact Friday, episode 6. I am here with Matt Christensen today. Hi, Matt.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
Everything's good over here. How are you doing?
It's cold and frigid over here, but other than that, things are good.
Where are you?
Just in the United States, in Utah.
In Utah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're dealing with some rain and wet weather over here in Aachen, Germany, but pretty cool that we can take a Friday for me afternoon and for you morning to connect. Thank you for taking the time.
You bet. I'm stoked.
So I came across your profile, I have to say, through your little hashtag action that you were doing with Kelly Paxton, and I was like, oh, what are these guys up to? And I thought it was pretty cool. And then ever since, we've been in contact a bit and sharing on LinkedIn and engaging, and it's been a lot of fun. And I thought, hey, let's do a live episode.
I'm pretty excited. This will be fun.
Yeah. So on your LinkedIn profile, all things cybersecurity and anti-fraud, and I really like your tagline. You say, I help people and businesses prevent cybercrime and fraud, and I love it. It's a cool tagline, and that's what we're going to be talking today. So I see people are jumping on, and so I need to be a better host and welcome them. So welcome to everyone who has joined so far. If you want, you can tell us where you're viewing from and how terrible the weather is, or nice, maybe it could be nice. But yeah, we are going to start with the icebreaker round. I think you're familiar with it, Matt, where I ask the either or questions.
I am. I'm terrified for it, but let's do it.
It's not so bad. Maybe we have a little discussion point at the end. We'll see. Okay. But I've got my 30-second clock here on my phone, and I'll start it if you're ready for the.
I'm ready.
All right, and let's see. Here we go. Mountains or beach for vacation?
Mountains.
Burger or pizza?
Burger.
Truth or dare?
Truth.
What are you listening to, podcast or music?
Podcast.
And the more important holiday, 4th of July or Thanksgiving?
Ooh, I'm taking all 8 seconds I have left. Thanksgiving.
Okay, that's a tough one, huh?
I love them both.
I know. I try to have the last question tie into what we're going to be talking about, and Thanksgiving is these days often associated with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a bunch of online shopping, and of course some cybersecurity topics involved there as well. But before we come to that, and we're going to have plenty of time to talk cybersecurity, you hesitated on truth or dare, so I'm not gonna ask you any embarrassing questions, but you're more the truth speaker than the daredevil.
I just found it's easier to just be honest up front rather than be told what to do and then make a fool of yourself later.
Yeah, good plan. Good plan. Yeah, cool. So that was a fun little thing. Oh, what was your last vacation in the mountains? Anything fun there?
We just love to get up there. So even for day trips, we love it. But we also love the beach as well. So mountains are a little bit more accessible in Utah.
Yeah, true. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell everyone who's viewing a little bit about your experience in the fraud fighting community and some of your current activities in this space, cybersecurity as well.
Cool. That's great. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for those that end up watching this after the fact. My name is Matt Christensen, and I have been in this space for over 12 years now. I really love cybersecurity. I love fraud fighting. I actually wanted to be in law enforcement, believe it or not, early on.
Cool.
Yeah, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't the right fit for me. Then I thought maybe I wanted to be in a clinical role or something like that, and that didn't work out. It just, again, it wasn't I don't think I was passionate enough to even pursue it, and never even applied. But it was one of those things I thought I could combine both of those areas, and now cybersecurity and healthcare and fraud fighting, it's a good fit. So
okay. I saw on your profile you have a lot of certifications and yeah, within this fraud fighting space. So maybe you can describe a couple of them. I have here CISSP, CFE, ITPM. Maybe start with CFE.
Okay.
What does that entail?
All right, great. So yeah, I am a certification junkie. I believe in continuous improvement. So CFE is the first one, and that's called Certified Fraud Examiners. Now, if you go to acfe.com, you can actually learn more about it. But basically, it's a global community. I think there's over 85,000 CFEs across the world that all get together and figure out how to fight fraud. And so that was actually my very first certification that I got.
Okay.
Among the others throughout the years. But yeah, I wanted to be able to feel like I could create a niche for myself, and this was just a perfect fit for me. Again, it kind of tied into that law enforcement. I get to feel and be an investigator and help solve. I'm a very curious person anyway. I love to ask why. And so that was just a natural fit. And I had a very supporting boss at the time. Actually, when I got that certification, I worked for the largest call center in the world. So there was 125,000 employees in 48 countries.
Wow.
And we always say, wherever there's humans, there's fraud. And so I just thought, hey, not that it was a terrible company or anything like that, but I just thought there's opportunity here that we could actually not just detect fraud, but prevent it, which is what I'm most passionate about. So yeah, that was CFE, and then I think you mentioned CISSP and ITPM, right?
Right.
Sometimes I have to look it up. I'm like, oh no, it's been so long. So CISSP is kind of the gold standard of certifications for cybersecurity professionals. So certified information systems professional, and basically it's one that you can really demonstrate that you've understood about this much in depth, but about the screen doesn't show it wide enough, but an inch deep, mile wide is what they like to say. So it just covers every possible topic in cybersecurity.
Okay.
And then the third one is the Insider Threat Program Manager. So I got that from Carnegie Mellon, and pretty intense course, pretty intense exam. And again, it kind of combines CFE with cybersecurity, and it focuses on what are the threats to a company from the inside. So not just an attacker from an external perspective, but how could one of your own commit fraud or steal from you? Or how could one of your own be convinced to commit fraud? So you have this accidental insider that just gets tricked into doing, they're not trying to be malicious, but then you have the intentional insider, and that's the one that's really, they're just a bad egg. They're just trying to steal from you.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of experience there. And cybersecurity is a huge and growing field, of course, as we become more digital, there's more activities online. If you had to boil the topic down to just, a summary, a few sentences, how would you describe cybersecurity?
So I've had to explain it a lot, and I still have yet to find like a really good way, but the way I like to think of it is cybersecurity is just one way to help to enable the business to keep making money and not losing money by dealing with incidents, hacks, breaches, malware, ransomware, all those things that really keep the business from doing itself. So a lot of people think of cybersecurity as just a group of individuals that are paranoid. They wear a tinfoil hat. They only put locks on windows.
Nice.
Yeah, I know, right? They just lock everything down so that it can never be broken into. And they lock it down so tight that the business can never get anything done. And I'm so terribly passionate about you do have to protect the business, but you have to do it in a way that you enable the business to actually live and thrive. And so it's that balance of how much security do we need to have, and where can we perhaps not be lax, because that sounds lazy or complacent, but more, where don't we need like Fort Knox type controls?
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a terribly hard field to break into, unfortunately. And that's actually part of why I do my podcast and part of why I try and get out in front of the community, because I had such a difficult time getting in. It took 50 interviews.
Okay.
50 job applications to even get one interview.
Okay.
And so it can be rather discouraging.
Why is that the case? Why did
now we're talking 13, 14 years ago, right?
Okay.
And so I don't think cybersecurity had the attention that it now does. I mean, you now see chief information security officers sitting at the executive suite level, whereas before it was kind of like one person was all of cyber. But now the business realized how important it is to protect themselves. So I think that's part of it. A lot of people require experience. Well, how do you get experience if you don't have experience? So they're looking for 3, 5, 7 years just to even get into the field. And it's like, no one starts with experience. So anyway, I'm part of a big force that's trying to encourage more and more people to get into cybersecurity, because it's an amazing field. And same thing with fraud detection. That can be a very difficult field to break into. If you go to like a search engine, Indeed.com or something like that, and you type fraud analyst, all you're going to find are companies that are looking for people who already have 5 or 7 years experience. And so how I got my start is I went to my boss, who was the chief information security officer at the time, and I said, what are your thoughts if we start a fraud program here? And I'll even take it on as a side project. So I'll keep up with my regular activities. I'll take this on as the side. We can grow it. If I don't do a good job, you can kill it, or we can turn this into something. And, I had his full support, and we did. We turned it into something great. So I help advocate. Don't let the barriers stop you from getting in, because there's a lot of opportunity in that space.
Okay, cool.
Long answer to a short question.
Yeah. So coming back to companies, what are some things that every company should have on their radar, maybe as a basic checklist, or some things they should have on their radar when it comes to cybersecurity?
I'll cater my response to small and medium business only because they're the most vulnerable. They're the most susceptible. And it's not that what I will say doesn't apply to large business, but the chances are right now large businesses are pretty invested in cybersecurity and anti-fraud. So here's what I would say. I think too often we focus on trying to secure the technology, because that's thought of as the way into a company, but it's not. The easiest way in is through the hundreds or thousands of employees that we just give access to, right? And so, and it's not that all of those, or many of those, a very small percentage of those would ever do harm. But what the bad guys have realized is that it's much easier to attack an innocent employee that just happens to click a link than it is to try and attack, an Oracle server that's behind 3 patches, that's behind firewalls, that has logging and monitoring in place. The bad guys realize that used to be the old way to attack a company, even a small business. And now it's not. It's going after the human. So my number one thing is advocating employee training. It's just educating them on the simple, basic, it's like security 101 stuff. So things like, don't just click links because someone sends you a free gift card if you do, right? Or have a really strong password. Now, a lot of people think that a strong password has to be random characters. And that's not true at all. Strong password is you get strength with length. That's the easiest way to think about it. So if you combined 4 or 5 dictionary words and then put a couple special characters on it to try and actually get that password and then break it, it would take centuries, something like that. So we make security too difficult for people, and that's also what I advocate, is just don't make it difficult or people won't do it. They'll find a way around it. So training is number 1. Strong passwords is number 2. Enabling 2-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. Now, when I talk about that, a lot of people are like, "Ooh, you either know what it's about or you have no clue what it's about. So I always like to assume that people don't know what it's about, even though I believe the community watching now or watching later, they already know. But I want to take 1 second, just in case there's even one person that doesn't. So what second factor does is if someone were to get your email username and your password, they get in. Anywhere in the world, they get in. But when you combine that password, something you know, with something you have, and that could be like a program on your phone where it notifies you, hey, is this you logging in? And you say, yes, this is me. That's the second factor. So now you're in. So even if I had your username and password, if I don't have your phone, now I'm not getting in. And that's probably the number one mistake small and medium businesses make when I talk with them, either on the cybersecurity side, or if they were defrauded, like if they had received an email, a business email compromise, and they had money routed from their account to a fraudster's account. 9 times out of 10, it's because they don't use two-factor authentication. Yep, they're using the same password at work that they used on a platform where those passwords are well known to the internet. I mean, you can go to several sites and look up hundreds of millions of passwords, and people just reuse passwords. It's a terrible thing. So that'd be another thing. For small businesses and medium-sized businesses, certainly securing the actual Wi-Fi itself, probably more so for small. It's really easy to get a router, set up an office, plug it in, and just let the default password be the router password. You could drive down a busy road with a little listening device, and you can know exactly what kind of router they're using. And 7 times out of 10, they're using the default password that router came with. So yeah, that would be certainly another one that I would add. And there's a laundry list, but those are kind of the big main ones.
Okay. So good place to start, especially for small and medium-sized companies, definitely.
Yeah, and easy, and you already have the resources to do it. And if you don't, you go to YouTube, you can learn how to configure a router. You go to YouTube, learn how to use two-step.
Yeah.
There's just really not an excuse anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So shifting from business to everyday consumers online, we Thanksgiving very briefly at the beginning. With Black Friday, Cyber Monday, they're now history, but people are still going to be shopping. Some big shopping season coming up. And what can individuals do, for example, to keep their upcoming holiday present shopping experience secure online?
Yeah, I always harken back to what my grandparents would say, and it's the same advice today. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
If you look at fraudsters, even over centuries, they don't change. How can I say this? They don't change necessarily many of the tactics. It's all they're using is trickery, right? They're preying upon the innocent and trusting. And that was centuries ago, and that's the same today. So these fraudsters, these online cyber criminals, will literally create mimic sites or copycat sites with really convincing links in them.
Yeah.
And then they email them out, or they put them on social media, and they become very enticing. You know, it used to be that they were very grammatically incorrect and you could spot them, right? Like, who answers emails now that says, "Dear Sir, Madam"? Like, we just
Nobody.
don't.
Well, I hope nobody.
Okay, maybe some do, because occasionally I still get one.
Yeah.
But now they're getting very crafty, and they're learning, okay, this type of person would, based on their social media, would love a free gift card to this retailer. So I think generically, though, from a broad perspective, a consumer perspective, it's just being vigilant. It's okay to ask questions. Don't just click. Think through and say, okay, if this deal is at a major retailer, rather than clicking the link, just go right to the retailer site. You'll find it anyway, right? If it's legit. Or call them up, find out what their phone number is, and call them up and say, I saw this. Is this legit or not? Again, if it's too good to be true, it is. It just is.
Yeah. Okay. And so coming back to the password thing.
Okay.
I I mean, as an individual, as a shopper, as someone who has a lot of social media accounts, I mean, it's typically advised to say don't reuse your passwords across every channel, whatever.
Yep.
If you're using 5 words from the dictionary every time, I mean, how do you keep track?
So I have over 120 online accounts,
Yeah.
and I have 118 unique passwords. There's 2 I reuse.
Yeah.
My Pandora account, which
Yeah.
I don't care if someone attacks. They might just learn that I listen to really bad country music.
Okay.
But the easiest way, David, to answer that question is don't try and create 120 unique passwords. Let technology do that for you. So I'm a big advocate for using password vaults. There's a number of them. You can use a free one or you can use a paid one. That's up to an individual to assess, what they're comfortable with and what they're not.
Yeah.
But the way it works is you go to a retailer's site or an online, a financial site, whatever it is. When you go to log in, it'll pre-populate a password for you that's totally random. You can choose how many characters you want it to be. And then you hit save, and then you never have to remember what that password is again. Okay. So now you go to your next online site and you log in, and it creates a unique password there for you. And that one's totally different from the first one. So you can have unique passwords. And the reason why that's important, it's not because we're paranoid, but if one of those sites or when one of those sites gets compromised and those usernames and passwords get published to the web, you only have to change one site because it's not used anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's by far the easiest way for an account takeover to happen is when people reuse their password. So the biggest thing, though, that I always mention with password vaults is you are putting all of your eggs into one basket.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that your password vault password, or your key as they call it, is also unique. And that thing needs to be very long. And again, as we mentioned earlier before, you can't just have a password that holds all your passwords. You need to protect it with a second factor.
Right.
So always having that vault protected with yet, another way to say this is me. That's the best way to do it.
Okay. All right.
It's so easy to do, David.
Yeah.
But even our listeners today, I know some of them are probably cringing, like, no, that just sounds like too much work. It doesn't. It takes a little bit of discipline, but technology has made it so simple now that I don't even know what these passwords are. And in fact, it'll even remind me to say, hey, you haven't changed that password recently. Do you want to change it now? One click, it's changed. Done deal.
All right. Sounds like a very helpful tip that I need to look into myself.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah. So let's talk briefly fraud, not frog. Well, we have a very quiet audience, by the way. I see people there, but they're not even telling me where they're listening from. But maybe something will come in. If anybody has a question, let us know. For Matt, cybersecurity, anti-fraud, let us know if you have questions. But let's talk fraud, not frog. I mean, that's the title we used for our session. Where did this name come from? What's it all about?
Okay, great. So it does take a little bit of a story. I'll try and be quick. When I got that first job and my title was cybersecurity and fraud, I would go and explain to people what I did. And I would, I did a little bit of traveling, and I would say, oh, I was doing a fraud investigation. And they were like, a frog investigation? And I was like, no, it was a fraud investigator. I'm a fraud investigator. And they're like, frog? And I was like, is it just my voice, or do other people, have this? And as I talk with other fraud investigators, they're like, that happens to me all the time. So I wanted to create a brand, and not necessarily a movement, but just it resonates with people who have been in that space, because someone at some point has said, now, wait a minute, your job is to help find insects in a company? I don't quite get it, So that's where fraud, not frog came from. Okay.
Cool. And so it's now, you now have a podcast on the side?
I do, yes.
What have been, well, actually, hold on one second. Something came in. Lorraine, wrote, I use 1Password. Is that one of those vaults?
That is. Yes.
Okay.
Good job, Lorraine. High five. Virtual high five.
Viewing from Texas, by the way. And also regarding this password vault, seems to be that we touched on an important point here. What do you see? Question from Stanley. What do you need to look out for to pick the right online password vault?
Good. Okay, so they do always say that if you don't pay for the product, you are the product.
Okay.
That is and isn't true with password vaults. There's actually very reputable free versions of password vaults. And if you want to contact me directly, just on LinkedIn or matt@auditlock.com, I'd be happy to talk offline more personally about ones that I recommend. But all the big brands of antivirus will sell one. Big brands of operating systems do as well. Just Google it. I think it's really good to trust the community, look at the ratings, how many ratings it has, look to make sure that it's never had a vulnerability or a breach.
Yeah.
So there used to be one that I used. It was called KeyPass, and it was a local vault stored on the computer, but it had serious vulnerabilities that anyone could break into it if they could get to your computer. And so, you just want to be very careful about which ones you do choose. Great question, Stanley. And again, good job, Lorraine.
So yeah, back to really quick. I know we're running short on time now. What have been some of your key takeaways on your Fraud Not Frog podcast, and would you recommend starting a podcast to others?
I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
Yes. The reason why is there's 800 blogs to every one podcast.
Okay.
So it's a really good way to get yourself out there. It also forces you to grow in areas. Like, I hate the sound of my voice. Sorry, everyone listening. It is who I am, but I'm not going to hide it. But I found that by doing that podcast, I've actually been able to learn more about what I thought I already knew. I thought I already was pretty well versed in fraud examination, and I'm not. So that's what I'm learning. So on my podcast, it's Fraud Not Frog is what it's called. I interview fraud investigators. I interview reformed fraudsters, so people who have actually served time, who are now fighting against fraud instead of committing it again. And then I interview burned business owners that didn't implement the things that they should have, and they're now suffering the ramifications of it. Many of them had to close their business. Many of them had to, fire like the people they trusted most, take out loans to pay for it. Anyway, so join the conversation, come in. We just, we're going to wrap up season 1 next week. Season 2, we've already got 16 people lined up.
Wow.
And
nice.
Yeah.
Obviously a need on the market for knowledge exchange and things like that. So that's cool.
There is. And I'm big on just letting other people tell their story. I don't know it all. The show's not about me. I really make the focus about the person I'm interviewing and what they can share to encourage anyone. I just want to say that now, that if anyone's watching and wants to get in on a new field, cybersecurity and fraud examination are awesome. And you don't have to have technical or law enforcement background to get in either of them. There's ways, and I'd love to help out if people have questions. I love connecting with my audience.
Cool. Nice offering there. I don't know if you have time for one more question.
I do. Yeah, let's bring it.
John Lane. Hi, John. Not John Wayne, was toned in the comment. From Wisconsin. What are you seeing in pursuit of shipped frauds?
So I'm going to assume by shipped frauds, he's talking about where you place an order and you're shipping it to, you're intercepting where it should be shipped to. The Postal Service has actually done a really good thing in the United States. I don't know about globally, but in the US, you can actually sign up and prevent that from occurring. So someone can't just go in and redirect where that shipping is going. Again, Amazon is another one that you've got to protect yourself with 2-factor. Otherwise, if someone gets that username and password, they can now redirect those shipments to someone else. So John, if that didn't answer your question, ping me offline. I'd love to talk more. But that's the understanding of shipping fraud that I know.
All right. And hi, Kelly. Kelly joined us, Kelly Paxton.
Hey, Kelly.
Pink Collar Crime. So that was fun. Hashtag sharing is caring, of course.
That's right.
So just to wrap up, you also offer, I believe, if I understood everything correctly, some training courses yourself. Is that right?
I do, yeah, and I would say we're right at the beginning steps of that.
Okay.
So my goal is to be able to provide free and affordable CPE training, so continuing professional education, so that you don't have to spend $100 for a training. I'm a big believer that it should be free in many cases, or at
Yeah.
least affordable. And so that's what 2020 is we're going to roll out a number of these trainings where if people don't have money, great, they can still come to the site and still get their hours they need to keep their certifications.
Yeah.
And if they want to invest in some of it, it's not going to be the $100 a CPE credit that often you see out there. I just am a big believer that prevents people from getting the training they need to be able to prevent and detect the fraud that they can. So that's our plan for 2020.
Okay. Cool.
I also invite other people to teach on that platform. So if there's any that are listening that want to be a guest teacher, a guest trainer on that platform, let me know. I'd love to connect. Kelly's actually going to do a course as well and share that on the platform. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that was it for the comments that came in. Thanks everyone for your participation. And Matt, thank you for these insights into cybersecurity and fraud prevention. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show.
Thanks, David. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, so have a nice weekend, and we'll, I'm sure, be in touch.
We will. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.